Have you ever noticed how silence sounds different in a courtroom? Not the comfortable quiet of an empty room, but the heavy, breathing silence of 100 people holding their breath. The kind of silence that wraps around a single gavel strike and transforms it into thunder. It is in these moments that history pivots. Not with grand declarations or dramatic speeches, but with the soft rustle of paper, the creak of wooden benches, and the whispered words that will echo through millions of lives. 9 justices lean forward, 170 million Americans wait. And somewhere between the marble columns and mahogany tables, the future of how we speak, how we connect, how we exist in the digital age hangs suspended like morning mist. This is the story of the moment when the highest court in America was asked to decide whether the government could silence one of the loudest voices in the modern world. This is the story of how quickly everything you know can disappear. The notification arrived like any other, a simple push alert on phones across America. But this one carried the weight of constitutional law and the dreams of content creators from coast to coast. On January 17, 2025, the Supreme Court had spoken. TikTok would go dark. This dramatized narrative is inspired by real legal principles and public case records. It is presented for educational and entertainment purposes with interpretations attributed to their respective sources. The courtroom was different that Friday morning. The usual measured pace of judicial proceedings had been replaced by something urgent, something that crackled with the electricity of historical significance. 9 justices sat behind their bench, each one aware that their decision would ripple through the lives of nearly 200 million Americans before the weekend arrived. At the petitioner's table, TikTok's legal team arranged their papers with the precision of surgeons preparing for a complex operation. These were not ordinary corporate lawyers. They were constitutional scholars, First Amendment specialists, the kind of legal minds that universities compete to hire and law students dream of becoming. Their briefcases contained more than legal arguments. They held the digital lives of creators like Desiree Hill, who had built a mechanic shop empire through 60-second videos, and Jessica Simon, whose candle company had grown from her kitchen table to a warehouse operation. Across the aisle, government attorneys sat with equal gravity but different confidence. They represented not just the Department of Justice, but the collective weight of national security agencies, intelligence assessments, and congressional will. Their folders contained classified briefings, threat analyses, and the kind of information that keeps cabinet members awake at night. Between these 2 tables lay the fundamental question that had brought them all here. When does protecting America require silencing Americans? The case had moved through the legal system with unprecedented speed. In the ordinary world of federal litigation, constitutional challenges take years to resolve. Appeals wind through circuit courts like slow rivers, gathering precedent and procedure before reaching the marble steps of 1 Street. But this case had arrived like a lightning strike, 2 days. That's how long it took the Supreme Court to respond to TikTok's emergency application. In a system where justices typically wait weeks for responses and months for oral arguments, they had scheduled a hearing within a fortnight. The message was clear. This mattered in ways that transcended normal judicial timing. The Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary-Controlled Applications Act had a name that revealed its purpose and concealed its complexity. Passed by Congress with bipartisan support, it required ByteDance, TikTok's Chinese parent company, to divest its American operations by January 19, 2025, or face a complete ban. The deadline was not arbitrary. It fell precisely 1 day before President-elect Trump's inauguration, creating a constitutional crisis wrapped inside a geopolitical puzzle. Behind the legal terminology lived human stories that the courtroom could barely contain. 7 million American businesses had built their customer base through TikTok's algorithm. Content creators had quit traditional jobs to pursue dreams that existed only because of the app's unique ability to turn ordinary moments into viral phenomena. Small-town entrepreneurs had reached global audiences from their kitchen tables and garage workshops. The irony was sharp enough to cut glass. The same platform that lawmakers claimed threatened American democracy had become one of the most powerful tools for American entrepreneurship. The algorithm that intelligence agencies feared might manipulate public opinion had instead created an economy worth over $24 billion in gross domestic product. As you listen, notice how easily this could be anyone's life. The First Amendment arguments filled the courtroom like competing symphonies. TikTok's attorneys argued for strict scrutiny, the highest level of constitutional protection. Under this standard, the government would need to prove a compelling interest and demonstrate that banning TikTok was the least restrictive means of achieving that interest. It was a standard so rigorous that only 3 speech-restricting laws in American history had survived it. The government's position was more nuanced, more dangerous in its implications. They argued that this was not about speech at all, but about corporate control. ByteDance was not merely a technology company, they claimed, but an extension of the Chinese Communist Party, subject to laws that required cooperation with intelligence operations and data sharing with Beijing authorities. The evidence they presented painted a picture of digital colonialism. Internal TikTok meetings revealed that China-based employees had accessed non-public data about American users. Intelligence assessments showed Chinese government accounts attempting to influence the 2022 midterm elections. The specter of foreign manipulation hung over every argument like smoke from a distant fire, but the defense pushed back with equal force. Where was the evidence of actual manipulation? Where were the documented cases of Beijing controlling American feeds or suppressing dissent? The fears, they argued, were theoretical. The harm to free speech was immediate and measurable. The Supreme Court's decision revealed the complexity of modern constitutional law. Rather than strict scrutiny, they applied intermediate scrutiny, a middle path that acknowledged both the speech interests at stake and the government's national security concerns. Under this standard, the law needed only to further an important government interest unrelated to suppressing expression and avoid burdening substantially more speech than necessary. The court found that the act satisfied this test. It was content-neutral, they ruled, targeting TikTok not for what was said on the platform, but for who controlled the platform. The distinction was subtle but decisive. ByteDance's Chinese ownership, not TikTok's American content, had triggered the ban. In their per curiam opinion, delivered with the efficiency of a surgical strike, the justices acknowledged the magnitude of their decision while defending its necessity. They wrote of a government interest that transcended normal commercial regulation, of national security concerns that could not be dismissed as speculative fear-mongering. But beneath the legal reasoning lay a deeper paradox. The same court that had spent decades expanding free speech protections had now approved the silencing of one of America's largest speech platforms. The same constitution that protected the right to speak had been interpreted to allow the government to eliminate the means of speaking. The aftermath revealed the true complexity of the case. Within hours of the decision, TikTok began preparations for a complete shutdown of its American operations. The logistics were staggering. 170 million user accounts would go dark. Millions of videos representing countless hours of creative labor would become inaccessible. An entire economy built on algorithmic discovery would vanish overnight. For creators like Felicia Jackson, whose CPR training device had saved lives after being featured on TikTok, the ban represented more than lost income. It meant the severing of connections between life-saving innovations and the people who needed them. Her patented CPR template had reached customers who might never have found it through traditional marketing channels. The human cost extended far beyond individual creators. Small businesses that had invested their entire marketing budgets in TikTok presence faced immediate obsolescence. Employees hired specifically to manage TikTok campaigns would lose their jobs. Warehouses built to fulfill orders driven by viral videos would sit empty. Yet the decision also revealed something profound about the nature of power in the digital age. For all of TikTok's influence, for all of its integration into American culture and commerce, it remained vulnerable to the fundamental reality of sovereign authority. No platform, regardless of its user base or economic impact, existed beyond the reach of governmental power. The Supreme Court had answered the question that had brought them together that January morning. Yes, the United States could ban TikTok. The Constitution, as interpreted by 9 justices, permitted the silencing of 170 million American voices in service of national security interests that remained largely classified and unproven. But in answering that question, they had raised a dozen others that would echo through the digital age. Where was the line between protecting national security and preserving free speech? How much proof of foreign influence was required to justify such sweeping restrictions? And perhaps most troublingly, what other platforms might find themselves subject to similar bans if geopolitical winds shifted in different directions? The gavel had fallen. The decision was final. But the questions it raised would linger long after TikTok's servers went dark and its creators found new ways to reach their audiences. The decision rippled outward like cracks in glass, each fracture carrying the weight of unintended consequences. In Silicon Valley boardrooms, executives studied the Supreme Court's reasoning with the intensity of generals analyzing battlefield maps. If TikTok could fall, what other platforms might find themselves in similar crosshairs? The precedent was set, the constitutional framework established. Foreign ownership, even indirect foreign influence, had become grounds for digital exile. President-elect Trump watched the developments with the complicated satisfaction of someone whose position had evolved with political necessity. 4 years earlier, he had been TikTok's most vocal opponent, signing executive orders attempting to ban the platform outright. Now, as Inauguration Day approached, he found himself inheriting a crisis that his previous administration had helped create. The transformation of Trump's stance revealed the intersection of politics, economics, and personal relationships in ways that legal scholars would debate for decades. His March 2024 reversal had followed a meeting with Jeff Yass, a Republican donor whose investment firm held a 15% stake in ByteDance. That stake represented roughly $40 billion of ByteDance's total valuation, creating a web of financial interests that complicated any simple narrative about national security versus free speech. Trump's public statements during the 2024 campaign had crystallized around a different enemy: Facebook. He had argued that banning TikTok would only strengthen what he called the enemy of the people, Mark Zuckerberg's social media empire. The logic was politically astute and strategically questionable. Rather than addressing the national security concerns that had motivated the ban, Trump had reframed the debate as a choice between foreign and domestic surveillance capitalism. The irony cut deeper than political calculation. Facebook, the platform Trump now sought to weaken, had spent years arguing that Chinese-owned TikTok posed unfair competition precisely because of its foreign backing. American social media companies had lobbied extensively for the ban, viewing it as an opportunity to reclaim market share lost to TikTok's superior algorithm and younger user base. In the days leading up to the ban's implementation, TikTok's American offices became monuments to digital archaeology. Employees worked around the clock to preserve what they could of the platform's American presence. User data was backed up, transferred, and secured according to protocols that few outside the company fully understood. The technical complexity of shutting down a platform used by nearly 200 million Americans revealed just how deeply TikTok had embedded itself in the nation's digital infrastructure. Content creators faced impossible choices. Some had built entire businesses around TikTok's unique discovery algorithm, which had proven more effective at connecting creators with audiences than any previous social media platform. The algorithm's ability to surface content from unknown creators had democratized viral success in ways that older platforms dominated by established influencers and media companies had never achieved. Jessica Simon's Mississippi Candle Company represented thousands of similar stories. Her transition from kitchen table entrepreneur to warehouse operator had been powered entirely by TikTok's capacity to turn handmade candles into must-have products. Between 90 and 98% of her sales came either directly through TikTok Shop or indirectly through customers who discovered her products on the platform before purchasing elsewhere. The mathematics of her success revealed TikTok's economic impact beyond simple advertising revenue. Her company had surpassed 6 figures in sales for the first time in November 2024. then repeated the achievement in December. The trajectory suggested a business model that would have continued growing exponentially, creating jobs and generating tax revenue in communities that traditional economic development had largely overlooked. For Desiree Hill, known to her followers as the She Mechanic, TikTok had provided something even more valuable than customers: credibility. In an industry dominated by men and shaped by decades of gender-based skepticism, her ability to demonstrate expertise through 60-second videos had built trust that traditional advertising could never have achieved. Her mobile mechanic business had expanded from a single-person operation to a 9,000-square-foot facility employing 5 people, all within 3 years of her first viral video. The ban would eliminate not just her marketing platform, but her proof of concept. Potential customers who might have discovered her through TikTok's algorithm would instead rely on traditional referral networks that had historically excluded women in automotive trades. The economic loss was measurable. The cultural regression was incalculable. As you listen, consider how quickly the foundations of modern life can shift beneath our feet. The national security arguments that had convinced the Supreme Court remained largely classified, creating a frustrating information asymmetry for both critics and supporters of the ban. Intelligence officials spoke in generalities about data access and influence operations, but specific examples remained locked behind security clearances and executive privilege. What was known painted a troubling picture of potential vulnerability. BuzzFeed News had documented 80 internal TikTok meetings showing China-based ByteDance employees accessing non-public data about American users. The meetings revealed a level of cross-border data sharing that contradicted TikTok's public assurances about data protection and user privacy. More concerning were intelligence community assessments showing Chinese government accounts attempting to influence American elections. The 2022 midterm elections had seen coordinated efforts to spread disinformation and manipulate public opinion through TikTok's platform. While the scale and effectiveness of these operations remained disputed, their existence was undeniable. Yet critics of the ban pointed to a fundamental inconsistency in the government's approach. American social media platforms routinely collected vast amounts of user data and had documented histories of foreign interference. Russian operatives had used Facebook to influence the 2016 election with far greater documented success than any Chinese efforts on TikTok. Why was foreign ownership of the platform more dangerous than foreign manipulation of American-owned platforms? The question revealed deeper anxieties about economic competition and technological sovereignty. TikTok's algorithm was widely acknowledged as superior to those developed by American companies. Its ability to keep users engaged for hours at a time had forced Facebook, YouTube, and other platforms to fundamentally redesign their products in response. The ban eliminated not just a security risk, but a competitive threat that American companies had struggled to match through innovation alone. ByteDance's subjection to Chinese laws requiring cooperation with intelligence services provided the legal foundation for the government's case. Under China's national intelligence law, all organizations and citizens must support, assist, and cooperate with state intelligence work. For a company holding detailed data on nearly 200 million Americans, such requirements created obvious national security concerns. But the precedent extended far beyond TikTok. Chinese companies held significant stakes in American businesses across multiple industries. Gaming companies, film studios, and technology manufacturers all maintained Chinese ownership or partnerships that could theoretically trigger similar national security reviews. The Supreme Court's decision had established a framework that could justify much broader restrictions on foreign investment in American digital infrastructure. The gavel's echo has faded, but its reverberations continue through courtrooms yet to convene and cases yet to be argued. In the end, the Supreme Court's answer was both definitive and incomplete. Yes, America could ban TikTok, but whether America should have done so remains a question that will outlive the justices who decided it. The true verdict may not be found in legal precedent or constitutional interpretation, but in the spaces between what we fear and what we know. In a democracy built on the premise that more speech, not less, cures the harms of speech, The silencing of 170 million voices marks either necessary protection or dangerous precedent. Time alone will reveal which shadow justice has chosen to cast.